Hello and most welcome to 959, and this will be my first try out in making a method out of fractality. And I have to warn you, this is the first take on the whole thing, my first try out. Never tried it before, so it's completely new to me. Where does fractality come in? Where does it have a role to play? Well, since fractality is time, space and knowledge, there is no place in the universe where fractality doesn't have a role to play. One such definite is in learning, and learning is what I'm going to take up today. I think our present understanding of memory is a very simplified idea of memory, and try to put that into the context of retention and protension, and you will end up in troubles directly. Retention definitely is not about recollecting or having an executive function that takes out old memories. That will be the very last that it's supposed to do. It is not its business. So what it is business? Well, retention is an active process going into the fractality. And as the same that goes with hearing, it is depending on your intention, how much you send out from your ear, that will correspond to how much you get back. The signal and the signal's fractality, it's temporal depth and its temporal width. It's all decisive when it comes to understanding how memory works and how protension, futuring, works. These are factors that demands you to send something out. Otherwise, no read-off will be done. And it's the interconnectedness in the difference, if you like, between what you're sending out, in the example of the ear, it is a signal that is audible with a specific instrument, and it's this very signal that reads off sounds around you, and it's depending on your intention. So the level of feedback will be higher or lower. And it's very, very important here to understand there is no true sound out there. There is no original out there. So you cannot get a truer percept of the idea of a sound out there. What you can get is more and more complexity, and it's this very complexity that makes truth or real perception. So you have access to that directly. You don't have to first have an outside sound that you sort of try to read off, and you are hoping that read off to be correct. This is not how it works. The sound you actually experience, if you fractally send down something that is very complex, will be something that has a complexity to make it true, informative. So you have direct access. Reality doesn't happen in between you and what you're listening to. It happens in you and outside of you at the same time. Otherwise we would have a time delay. We don't have a time delay when it comes to perception, not in that way. Otherwise, how could people react before the actual event? Well, the reason is they are sending signals out constantly And it's in this sending out signals that we can do reading. And if we don't intentionally try to further the complexity of the signals that we send out, we will be lacking in perceptual information fractality. And you will have less, quite literally less, much less. The same goes with the ears. The same that goes with the ears also goes with the eyes. The more your intention gets further, your thinking gets stronger, it gets more fractal, more complex, the more you can actually send out. And forget also with vision that it is a passive process and it's active in both ends. Vision doesn't happen until what you send out reach what is coming from exogenous side, and we don't know what's coming from the exogenous side. It is not something previously living in the world of ideas. It has always already been there in a way, but it doesn't have the ideas that, for instance, Kant had, that it is decided pre-advanced, and that you have this a priori synthetic and you have the a priori analytic. No, it doesn't work that way, and we can be quite certain that Kant has been, at least in that vision, proved wrong. It does not work that way. So the same goes for memory. There is an idea that memory is absolutely passive, that we have an executive function that just works or doesn't work, and you don't have to do anything yourself. This is absolutely wrong. For every minute, for every 10 minutes, for every hour, for every day, you train the retention process, you will get better. Little by little, much by much, and you will constantly progress. It is not a passive process. Just thinking as the executive function in the head that works by itself is something that is going to damage your memory function. The idea that memories can just pop up somehow. My example is, I learned to remember names many years ago. It was like 20 years ago. My starting incitement was that I constantly forgot names. Didn't matter where I went, I did forget names. So I realized I'll have to train my memory process. Took me a couple of years, and the more I understood this is active, the more I could train, be able to train. So the very idea that retention is something absolutely active is important, otherwise you will not train. If you think you just have memory, you will not be able to reach inside of yourself and understand it's a training process. It's much active, and it depends on your activity grade, and it can always be either improved or sort of go down. So it could go either way, and it's depending on your intention. The descent will happen when you think memory is a passive thing. Then you have started the pathway of losing your memory more and more. I heard this ridiculous thing the other day. Well, it was quite a long time ago, but I heard this thing. Well, memory gets worse with age, and that person, he just accepted it as it was. that idea will turn your memory process into havoc. Not only is it not true, but it will have a very, very decisive effect. And that person thought that all thinking was absolutely passive, like, I don't know, like a piece of machinery, or like a jigsaw machine. You name it. It's not passive. And the idea of passivity has a very detrimental effect, and that's been proven. We already know that. And of course, these experiments are true to a certain extent. They find passive persons, and if you're passive, if you think memory is passive, it will start to go down from that very instant. It is like you get the idea, you don't need to train your body to have strong muscles. The very instant you think that, you will stop training and your muscles will go down. It is no difference. And to actually show the similarity even stronger is that the actual movement is coming via the cerebellum, and also memory process says the quality of memory processes are also directed via the cerebellum, and it's only your intention that can change something to the positive or don't do anything at all, remaining in the passive. So you see here how quantum mechanics do have the most important role to play in health, because you can only gain health by your own thinking. So memory is just a part of that. You need good memory to be healthy. Your joints need to have retention as well. Your joints are not something taken apart from your thinking process, your mental process. It needs retention to be stable, to be flexible, to be lenient, soft, hard when necessary. And this is of course, the improvement line, learning how to become more coordinated. Is memory process a very important thing? It is not something unnecessary torture of children. Absolutely not. Of course, all this is fascinating, taken from the perspective of fractality. I've gone so far into the book, even though I have only gone in 7 chapters so far. So it's not really amazing. But it will get better as I go longer into the book. But I already realize it has ludicrous tendencies within the former neurology, the former science of cognition, that it sort of assumed the world to be out there, and that has affected what you find. That has affected how you construct the theories, and all those theories are surrounding us in a way that is very, very hard to resist. And therefore, are you not in this league as Susie Frobel or the more modern people of 2022 or 2021, you will still have this after effect, this whole effect of the whole fractality of the society. And that idea shines in passivity, passivity, passivity. The world is out there, we don't affect it, we can just perceive it by looking at it. So you see here how these things sort of support each other and make the whole idea stronger. So how can I train my memory now? Well, just to realize fractality made me be more intentional in my memory training. I realized if I trained, it will get better. Before, maybe I was thinking, I will train and I'm not sure if it will get better. The failure percentage in memory training is quite massive. It is 80%. So you can easily think that you belong to that category. But if you start opening up space and you get your fractality mood in, which I can feel now coming in, I feel more presence. I tend to be more active in my looking. Not looking around doesn't mean, but I actively project what I'm about to see. If I turn my head, I don't just open my eyes and see, oh, look at that, there is a boulder. No, I try to imagine the boulder before it hits my eyes. Therefore, you will see the boulder to get much stronger in perception. This is how it works. And the more you get into that fractal mood, and you still do your memory training will get more complex, more fractal. This is how it works. For each training instant, you will gain more fractality, and when you do your regular memory practice, and that also would affect people in monasteries doing their liturgy, people in an ashram doing their complicated singing of the Upanishad, the Vedas, or whatever it was, that will sharpen, get stronger, get more complex, get more resilient. And of course, these people can use this memory process whenever they want, if they are in social interaction, which is incredibly important. When I Ya sutasas. Hola, Gala, Galaise. If you get into this memory training stronger and stronger, you will feel that the memory training gives you more. And I think that is the way of cutting this 80% failure in the regular memory training method. Because if you still don't train your fractality, memory process will come very slowly. It's like you have already put in a resistance somewhere in your reality. And the more you start to understand you are a participant in your reality, the less passive you will become. And being less passive meaning more, becoming more fractal, becoming more complex. And your understanding level will heighten. You will understand what people say to you to a higher level. And there is no definite final understanding of speech, as there is no final definite understanding of a text, like Shakespeare, the Bible, you name it. It can always get better, but the better you get, the higher you get, the more likely is you get up to the area that people could read Shakespeare when it was actually published. And that takes a lot of training, because very few today can read Shakespeare as it was read. And no amount of reading, rereading will change that. That can only fractality change. And the people of the past, for obvious reasons, were much more fractal than we are today. And not being fractal is unhealthy when it comes to reading, when it comes to mental health, and also when it comes to bodily health. And memory is an excellent example of this, where the prejudice, the idea that everything is passive out there, will influence your memory retrieval. An excellent example of that is when you put elderly people, this experiment was done by, I just remember it now, I don't have the reference. If you would be willing to Google it, you can send me the reference, otherwise I'll do it myself later on. But they put people who grew up in the 50s in an environment from the 50s. They served them 50s food, they had television programs from the 50s, and they dressed them up in the 50s clothes. And they stayed there only for a week, and their memory and cognitive functions improved massively. So the very idea of a stable out there world that changes to the worse, it is a deteriorating effect. With this special method they took it away, but by understanding that the world is not strictly out there, world at large, or vision from nowhere, that you are doing the visioning constantly, perpetually, and you are the most important actor in your own life. And if you acknowledge that role, your perception will grow stronger and stronger every day. And we know that. And I've seen it with my own eyes. While going to India, It's so obvious in all the paintings. There are always beams coming out of the eyes and also sometimes out of the ear, although they don't look like beams, look like more like musical notes. So that understanding has been within the yoga, the Veda, and this is the reason for we many years ago had this idea of I don't know if you remember that, ear and taste. They make up a special system in Samkhya and Advaita for the construction of the world, and I had this big A3 thing in color that show how things come up from perception, so to speak. I really liked it, and I saw it at that instant as a typical Edvard de Bono provocation, something I didn't believe in, but was so different that it would evoke new material. That view is completely changed by me now. I see exactly what it meant. It is an understanding of fractality, and it literally is as the poster showed. If I don't have it at home, I will bring it to the lectures when we start next week. I will print it out once more. But there you could see how it was all level, going from the finer, almost mental projections, going to the bigger ones that are more material, more substantial, and then you finally go to the matter of things, the real McCoy. And in this process, everything becomes more and more real, more and more, what can you say, more apprehensible, more understandable, more functional, and to a greater working process, coming in by that more and more. So you see why this double take, all these lectures, what have they proved, what have they served? Well, the very, very important realization, body and mind, that the world is not simply out there. And that takes a lot of time. It took us a lot of time to get to the top of the mountain where we are now. But I would say from now on everything gets easier. But just the fact that I'm now presently recording 4 lectures per day, although the fact is I had never had so much to do apart from the lectures right now. I barely get any sleep, but I'm so excited about this incredible revolution, because all of a sudden science comes into deconstruction, Heideggerian destruction. It comes into the eyes of the Rudolf Gachet, it comes into Robert Magliola, and paraconsistent logic makes so much more sense. It already made a lot of sense before, but now with fractality it gains power. This is a happy message from a happy chap, and I wish you a very pleasant afternoon. Have a good one, and do start to train fractality. I recommend it. Take in the background, take in what's around you. That's part of your fractality. It is not strictly an outside, it is also your own very body. Remember the interpenetrative action of space. If you shut space off, you also cramp your body. It's impossible to avoid. Shutting out space is the same as cramping your body, locking your knees, putting all your weight on your toes and so forth. Well, do carry on, but you will get more hand-to-hand instructions later on. Bye-bye.